This week in gaming, Into the Breach was finally released, NIS America revealed that they've suffered a data breach, Ubisoft has acquired Blue Mammoth Games, Stardew Valley is 2 years old, a Final Fantasy XV PC demo is available, Overwatch support hero Bridget has been unveiled, Detroit Become Human comes out May 25th, Flinthook is coming to the Nintendo Switch on May 9th, fantasy board game Armello is coming to iOS on March 16th, and this is One RBC Gaming Weekly. First off, if you're a fan of the Smash Bros.-inspired free-to-play game Brawlhalla, we've got some interesting news. The game's developer, Blue Mammoth Games, has been purchased by Ubisoft. According to an official blog post, the acquisition means that the studio will have more resources to improve Brawlhalla and continue adding features to the game, but they're not going to be making the game pay to win. Brawlhalla shall continue as it always has. Personally, I'm not sure what to think about this news. On the one hand, I'm glad for Blue Mammoth if this means they'll have more wiggle room for producing their game, but on the other hand, I do have my concerns about seeing yet another indie studio being grabbed up by a massive publisher. Hopefully Ubisoft really does leave them to their own devices. Are you a fan of Brawlhalla, and if so, what do you think about this acquisition? Hit us up on Twitter at OneRuleBeCool, and be sure to share your thoughts. NIS America, the American branch of Japanese publisher Nippon Ichi Software, suffered a data breach earlier this year. If you made a purchase from their online store anytime between January 23rd and February 26th, your data may have been compromised. If you made the purchase via PayPal, your information is likely fine, but if your purchase was made via a credit card, you'd best start monitoring your account for fraudulent charges. NIS has since stopped up the hole in their security. This breach also affected the SNK online store, which is run by NIS, so if you made a purchase anytime between those affected dates on that store as well, you may have been affected. In Overwatch news, this week a new character was unveiled. Bridget Lindholm, a support hero who, in the lore, is Torbjorn's daughter. A mechanical engineer, she specializes in armor fabrication and shielding. Blizzard has already made Bridget playable on the test servers. Apparently, the character Reinhardt was her mentor, and she wields a rocket flail in his honor, which is a bit like his hammer, albeit with a longer range. She can also toss repair packs that heal allies and grant armor, and she can deploy energy shields. Bridget has quite the full kit, and will be joining the game's regular servers soon. In virtual reality news, the Oculus Rift has overtaken the HTC Vive's market share. At least, so it seems according to a recent Steam hardware survey, which revealed that 47% of VR headsets being used with Steam games are the current model Oculus Rift, while the Vive is at about 45%. A 2% difference, but boy, it's a difference. Now this isn't wholly surprising as the Rift costs $200 less, though it is interesting to see the way the market appears to be shifting. VR is gaining wider and wider adoption. The more affordable option, obviously, appeals to a much bigger number of people. Now, will the Valve-backed Vive take back market share this year with some inbound hardware revisions? Time shall tell. In game releases this week, classic JRPG Chrono Trigger received a PC release. Now, in case you've not heard of it, Chrono Trigger is widely regarded as one of the greatest video games of all time. Originally released in 1995 on the SNES, Chrono Trigger is a fantasy adventure about traveling through time to prevent a nightmarish dystopian future. It's a game that falls under the category of just play it. Seriously, it's a brilliant game that's had a ton of influence on the world of gaming today. It has multiple endings, fantastic character art by Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama, clever writing, and some of the best music you'll have ever heard in a game. While I recommend playing Chrono Trigger, I sadly cannot recommend the Steam version of the game. The reviews are in from both players and the press, and this edition of the game is plagued with bugs. You know, when the game was released 23 years ago, it went through rigorous testing to guarantee its quality. It seems that Square Enix has abandoned this in favor of making a quick buck. What's worse, the game's graphics are somehow uglier than they were 2.5 decades ago. Seriously, it looks like they smeared petroleum jelly on the sprites to try and give them rounded edges, instead of going through the trouble of making them anew. There have also been reports that the game is suffering from frame rate issues. What's going on here? Is it intrusive DRM? A cryptocurrency mining scam? Was the game engine rebuilt in Java? To be clear, this isn't a totally new version of Chrono Trigger. While it does include 2 new dungeons, those were ported over from the DS version of the game. This edition of the game is just the mobile version that came out a few years ago for iOS and Android. A disappointment, to be sure. Chrono Trigger is absolutely a good game that's aged well, but this supposedly new edition just isn't worth dropping your money on. Avoid it. The hotly anticipated Into the Breach is now available for Windows on Steam. Developed by Subset Games, who you may know for their work on the critically acclaimed FTL Faster Than Light, Into the Breach is another sci-fi strategy game. Unlike FTL, however, it's a turn-based tactics game set on Earth during an alien invasion. You're put in charge of a team of time-traveling mecha tasked with saving the world, one corporate-owned island at a time. In this future, CEOs govern the last vestiges of humanity, each with their own agenda. The archivists are aiming to preserve the planet as it was, and would really prefer you not set the forests on fire, even though you can use that to fight the aliens. You'll find the RST Corporation suffering the effects of an environmentally catastrophic attempt at terraforming the environment to fit their needs. These different in-game environments are actually a huge part of the gameplay of Into the Breach. On the unstable lands of RST, tiles on the map are sometimes struck by cataclysms that cause them to vanish into the earth, taking the Vec, the invasive aliens in the game, along with them. Into the Breach isn't just a game about blowing up aliens. It's a game about careful restraint. You have a few turns per level. Each feels somewhat like a puzzle, with little room for error. Your gigantic, cannon-equipped mech can destroy titanic bug-eyed beasts with ease, but it can also cause damage to nearby buildings, which you're trying to protect. If enough buildings are destroyed, the power grid goes down, which shuts down your mechs and forces you to travel through time again. Here's the clincher, however. You can only save one of your pilots when you're traveling through time. You make your pick, and you start the game over again. I still have quite some way to go Into the Breach, but I have to say that it's shaping up to be a really solid strategy game. Quite different from FTL, but every bit as challenging. Have you been playing Into the Breach, and if so, what do you think of it? Hit us up on Twitter at OneRuleBeCool, and be sure to share your thoughts. By the way, if you happen to purchase Into the Breach before March 6 on either Humble or GOG.com, you'll get a free copy of FTL Faster Than Light. An incredible deal, if I do say so myself.
That's right. Run, little man, you tiny coward! Run for shelter! It's not a trap, trust me.
The Behemoth's wonderfully silly Pit People left early access on Steam and the Xbox One this week. For the uninitiated, Pit People is a turn-based strategy game in which you play as a blueberry farmer named Horatio, who's on a mission to save his son from a space bear. This game is from the Behemoth, folks. It's surreal. In addition to a well-fleshed-out single-player campaign, Pit People also has 2-player co-op and a 2v2 mode for when you've got friends over. Pit People seems to be an unusual change of pace for the Behemoth, which has a track record with more action-oriented platformers, such as Battle Block Theater and Alien Hominid. That said, it looks like they did a good job on Pit People, as the reviews from both players and the press have been tremendously positive. If you're looking for a new comedic strategy game, you should check this one out. If you're into racing games, I've got some great news. Burnout Paradise is coming to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 on March 16, 2018. Now, in my opinion, it was one of the finest racing games released in the past console generation, and indeed, it's one of my favorite games of all time. Burnout Paradise is an open-world racing game set in a sprawling city, with a ton of challenges to tackle, cars to unlock, and stunts to perform. This new edition of the game will include previous DLC and support for 4K and 60 FPS on the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. Burnout Paradise Remastered is also set to be released on PC later this year, along with the Big Surf Island DLC, which was previously console exclusive. Hopefully this new edition of the game turns out well. From the looks of the trailer, it seems that EA didn't make too many changes. Perhaps that's for the best. Finally, we leave you with the latest trailer for Heaven's Vault, which is currently in development for the PS4, iOS, and PC. It's being worked on by Inkle Studios, the studio responsible for 80 Days, and it's an adventure game about deciphering an ancient language while hunting for a missing roboticist. Enjoy. That's it for this week's game news. For all the greatest game news, reviews, interviews, and more, be sure to follow at OneRuleBeCool on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my own views.